Good day, classmates. Good day, Mr. Lemuel Barol. My name is Gerson C. Habines, and today, let's talk about the height of imperialism. My dear classmates, and our dear subject teacher, Mr. Lemuel Barol. Before I'm going to proceed to my report, let's have the K terms. What is imperialism? On section 1, imperialism is the extension of one nation's powers over another. How about indigenous? On section 2, is a native to a region. A viceroy. On section 3, it is a governor who rules in place of a monarch. Non-violent resistance. Opposition, a government without violence. Creole, person of European descent living in West Indies or South America. Monroe Doctrine, 1823 President James Monroe guaranteed no European interference in the Western Hemisphere. And now let's proceed to Section 1, Colonial Rule in Southeast Asia. The 19th century saw the emergence of a new imperialism in Asia and Africa. By establishing overseas colonies, Western powers saw an opportunity to improve their access to both raw materials and new markets for their manufactured goods. Racism, social Darwinism, and the white man's burden all helped Westerners justify colonization. Virtually, all of Southeast Asia came under the control of Great Britain, France, and the United States. Only Thailand stayed independent. Colonial powers ruled either indirectly, relying mainly on local elites, or directly by sending a governor. Although some local people profited from the colonial arrangement, most suffered from the harsh conditions of plantation work. Resistance movements sought to protect local economic and religious interests, but were crushed by the colonial powers. Later, Western-educated elites led resistance movements with a new goal: national independence. Chapter 21: Imperialism. With industrialism, Western nations began to look to Asia and Africa as source of raw materials. Colonial nations want to control the politics and economics of colonies. Strategic and religious concerns also come into play. As you can see, here's an illustration of a cartoon depicting British imperialism. How about White Man's Burden? It is also a cartoon titled White Man's Burden. Colonial countries believed their efforts were justified by the following: desire to help the uncivilized, desire to spread Christianity, social Darwinism. Critics charged Europeans and Americans with using double standard: freedom and rights at home, but none in their colonial possessions. Section 1, Colonial Rule in Southeast Asia. Between 1800 and 1900, most of Asia was carved up by Western powers. Great Britain developed colonies in Singapore City, Burma, now Myanmar, New Guinea, and India. France developed colonies in Indochina, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Thailand, or Siam, the exemption with wise kings, they kept control of themselves. Spain, Philippines, the US took control of the Philippines after Spanish-American War. Here is the colonial map of Southeast Asia. Direct rule. Officials from the mother country rule the land. Burma, southern Mekong. Indirect rule. Local rulers maintain their control in Vietnam, Dutch East Indies. Colonial powers would rule by differing methods. Indirect rule involved associations with local leaders. Direct rule replaced local leaders with officials from mother nation. Political rights of local people varied by colony. Here is an illustration of a fleet of Dutch East Indian trading ships. But there are problems from imperialism. Number 1. Demeaned local people. Number 2. Abused natural resources, forced locals to grow what colonists wanted. Number 3. Persecuted local religions. Number 4. Stole profits from exports. And lastly, caused animosity amongst East versus West, or establishing future wars. Just for example, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War. How about the resistance to colonialism in Asia? Many Asian people were unhappy with treatment at the hands of colonial rulers. Resistance and revolts occurred throughout Asia. Economic and religious issues, not nationalism, generally were the focus of resistance. Who fought colonialism? Monarchs fought the foreign rule. Peasants fought against foreign rule. Educated, westernized people based upon nationalism. Here is an illustration of University of Rangoon became a center of colonial resistance. And now let's proceed to Section 2, Empire Building in Africa. European control over Africa began with British annexations in West Africa. After 1880, great power rivalries prompted France, Germany, Portugal, Belgium, and Italy to begin seeking territory in Africa. In Egypt, an Ottoman army officer named Muhammad Ali set up an independent state and began modernizing the country. Great Britain's interest in the Suez Canal led to Egypt's establishment as British protectorate. Belgium and France staked claims to lands around the Congo River in Central Africa, while Germany, despite the reluctance of Bismarck, claimed territories in West and East Africa. British involvement in Southern Africa led to the Boer War against the descendants of 17th century Dutch settlers, and then to the establishment of the Union of South Africa. Resentment of the colonial powers led to the emergence of nationalist movements, especially as a new class of educated middle-class Africans began to point to the hypocrisy and discriminatory nature of colonial rules. Meanwhile, the colonialism in Africa. Prior European involvement in Africa was limited to cost. Africa is completely carved up between 1880 and 1900. Desire for prestige raw materials, strategic lands drove imperialism. African efforts to resist colonialization are met with European military might. Sudan on 1898. Muslim deaths, there are 11,000, while British deaths, only 28. Section 2, Colonialism in Africa. As you can see, here's the rubrics from North, Central, East, and South. Egypt controlled by the Ottoman Empire, Muhammad Ali. Ferdinand de Lesseps contracted to build the Suez Canal by 1869. On 1914, Egypt was a British protectorate, while French controlled Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco. And now let's proceed to Central. Dr. Livingstone explored, and when he disappeared, the New York Times sent Henry Stanley to find him. Dr. Livingstone, the first, presumed Belgium colonized at the urging of Stanley. The Congo was area controlled by Belgium. While in the east, Britain and Germany controlled. Portugal and Belgium also colonized the area. And on the south, most heavily influenced by Europeans, Boers, or descendants of the Dutch people, all known as Afrikaners. British started to take over control from the Boers. Boers fought the Zulu with Shaka as their leader. Cecil Rhodes, British gold diamond Rhodesia, named after him, began the Boer War. What is Boers? Boers or Afrikaners and British desired control of strategic area of Africa. Fought Boer War from 1899 to 1902 over area. Zulu people also resisted colonialism. In 1910, British create independent nation in South Africa. Here is the flag of African nationalism. While on the other side, we have the British officers during the Boer War. As in Asia, many Africans dislike colonial rule. Native Africans rarely were involved governing their own nations. New organizations devoted to African nationalism grew in early 1900s. And let's have the Section 3 British rule in India. The British controlled India through the British East India Company, which had its own forts and soldiers. A revolt led by Indian soldiers prompted the British government to appoint a British viceroy to rule the country. The British developed India economically, building railroads and creating an education system for the upper class. Indians paid a high price for British rule. British manufactured goods destroyed local industries. The abuses of tax collectors and the superior British attitude and lifestyle caused many Indians to resent the British. The Indian National Congress, made up mostly by Hindus, led calls for reform. A Muslim League was later formed to represent Muslim concerns. The most prominent Indian leader was Mohandas Gandhi, a Western-educated lawyer who advocated non-violent resistance as a way to gain independence. Tense relations with the British led to an Indian cultural revival. And now let's proceed to the Sepoy Mutiny. British controlled their economic interest in India through East Indian Company. Indian soldiers, known as Sepoys, revolted in 1857 due to a religious misunderstanding. As a result, British Parliament transfers control of India directly to British government. Here is an illustration of a portrait depicting the Sepoy Mutiny. Below is the British officers in India. British colonial rule in India. British rule directly through Viceroy and civil service. British set up school system and developed infrastructure. Peace and stability of cost of freedom and rights for Indian people. Section 3 Colonial Rule in India. We have the rubrics. We also have benefits and cost. Let's go first to benefits. Number 1, brought order and stability. Number 2, new school system. Number 3, railroads, telegraph and postal service established. Now let's proceed to costs. Number 1, lost economic power to foreigners. Second, British textiles put women out of work. Third, Zemandars collect taxes, abused power. Fourth, cash crops instead of food crops. Fifth, best of everything given to Britons. And lastly, Indians never considered equals. Indian nationalism. Indian nationalists worked towards reforms of British system. Eventually, nationalists pushed for ouster of British completely. Lawyer Mohandas Gandhi is leader. Group uses non-violent resistance to push for independence. Here is the picture of Indian nationalist Mohandas Gandhi. Let's proceed to section 4, nation building in Latin America. After the Napoleonic Wars, Spanish and Portuguese authority in Latin America became weak. A slave revolt in Hispaniola was the first of many successful bids for independence. Many Europeans favored the restoration of Spanish control, but the American Monroe Doctrine and British naval power discouraged European intervention. Caudillos, or strong leaders backed by military force, took power throughout Latin America. American settlers in the Mexican state of Texas gained independence and later American statehood. Great Britain and later the United States became the dominant foreign power in Latin America. In the Spanish-American War, the United States gained control of Cuba and Puerto Rico. American investments and military intervention in Latin America grew. Revolution in Mexico produced a new reformist constitution. However, the new professional sector in Latin American society was generally conservative and allied itself with landholding elites. And now let's have section 4, nation building in Latin America. Peninsulares, top social class, Spanish and Portuguese officials, temporary residents. Creoles, first generation from Europeans, wanted equality, wanted everything to be free. Just for example, press and trade or etc. Mestizos, largest social group, Indian and European blood, worked as servants or laborers. As you can see, here's another rubrics dividing Mexico, Haiti, Cuba, and South America. In Mexico, we have Miguel Hidalgo, priest. On September 16, 1810, Mestizos rose up against Spanish but were crushed. Agustin de Iturbide became Emperor of Mexico in 1822. And for Haiti, originally called Hispaniola, revolt led by Francois Dominique de Saint-Louverture, where slaves rose up to take control. First independent state in Latin America. And now let's proceed to Cuba. War with the US in 1898. The US received Puerto Rico in the deal. 1903, US supported a rebellion from Colombia that gave the US the Panama Canal. Let's have a trivia about Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is an artificial 82-kilometer waterway in Panama that connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean and divides North and South America. The canal cuts across the Isthmus of Panama and is a conduit for maritime trade. Now we have South America. Jose de San Martin or Argentina, Simon Bolivar or Venezuela led revolts to free South American countries from control of Spain and Portugal. By 1824, Peru, Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, Venezuela, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile were free of Spain. 1822, Brazil was free from Portugal. Section 4, Nation Building in Latin America. Ideals of American Revolution spur others in Latin America to seek independence. Local people in Mexico and Bolivia revolt against their colonial masters. Haitian Toussaint Louverture led successful slave revolt casting French out. So here's the picture of Toussaint Louverture. We also have Mexican revolutionary Emiliano Zapata. U.S. issues Monroe Doctrine to keep European nations out of Latin America. U.S. makes effort to keep friendly leaders in power. Revolutionary Emiliano Zapata rallies peasants to overthrow Mexican's government in 1920. To eliminate our boredom, all you have to do is to sit back, relax, listen, and imitate our short icebreaker.
Oh! Take it down. It's up, up, take it down, take it down. Up, up, take it down, take it down. Up, up. One stop. Out, in, change. Out, in. Good. Out. We're going to keep the feet the same, add the arms. Push, pull it in. Push, pull it in. Change. We're going to have a nice easy sway. Snap it. We're going to get ready to cross our shoulders. It's going to be nice and easy.
Before we end up, let's have a review of imperialism. Major regions of European control: Britain, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. We also have Southeast Asia, Africa, and India. For your comments, suggestions, reactions, please feel free to drop a virtual hands in the chat box. Thank you so much and have a nice day.